So, Allie, let's swing up to Capitol Hill, the place you cover every day. The mood of Democrats, as we mentioned, a couple more Democratic defections yesterday from President Biden after the press conference saying it's time to move on. It's time for him to step aside and let's get Vice President Harris or a different candidate in there to beat Donald Trump. They say not because they don't admire and respect Joe Biden and his administration and the work he's done, but because they simply think he can't beat Donald Trump. So what else are you hearing in the hours after that press conference last night?
I think this conversation for the last 20 minutes hits on something that's so central to the main point on Capitol Hill, which is I haven't talked to anyone who's a staffer, who's an operative, who's an elected, who doesn't say some form of the sentence, I love Joe Biden, but. Those electability concerns are so palpable. This panic has been so protracted. There was just a real sense on the Hill yesterday, I think, of despair, both with the people who have come forward, like Senator Peter Welch, to say, I think he needs to step down, all the way to members who have privately expressed their concerns, but don't want to come forward publicly, either because they don't think that it's going to be persuasive to the president, so why bother, or because they just don't know if they're there yet. They have such concerns about who, if not Biden, can beat Donald Trump, because, again, all roads lead to Democrats stressing the need to avoid a second Trump presidency because of things like Project 2025, because of the role that Trump has played and takes credit for on stripping women of abortion protections and reproductive health care access. But I think what Congressman Jim Himes, the head of the Intel Committee, says when he explained why he came out in the minutes after that press conference, why he's coming out and saying Biden shouldn't be the nominee, this is part of what he says. And then there's one other thing he said that I noticed that I think is such an important piece. Listen here first.
I've been with the president on a number of occasions, and I have looked at those numbers. No president has ever been reelected with the disapproval ratings that our current president, love him as we do, has. And so I will not stand silent as I see a trajectory to an electoral loss that leads to the presidency of Donald Trump and all that he has promised. I've done a lot of political campaigns, Alex, and the one attribute of almost every single losing campaign, and I've seen hundreds of them, is that right up until the moment that the numbers are in and you've lost, you believe that you will win.
You guys also touched on this, and it's something that the congressman later said. It's the idea that everything that President Biden does between the debate and Election Day is going to be picked apart, scrutinized. Any mistake will be much more massive. And that's something that Congressman Himes said, this idea that you can't just jump from presidential appearance to presidential appearance with an entire party weighing whether or not this is the moment that they should all jump ship. And it's the question that I've been asking lawmakers. How much longer can you guys do this without utterly kneecapping the man who right now has decided he is your nominee? And I have to tell you, none of them have answered that question. I asked top Democratic House member Hakeem Jeffries yesterday, how much longer can you let your caucus continue to just air their grievances and drip by drip come out and say they don't think Biden should be the nominee? And he just said it's a constructive family conversation. That's been the line all week. But none of these lawmakers want to grade the president on a curve. And I can bet you voters don't either.
As we've been saying this week, Allie, this is people of good faith who want one thing in the Democratic Party, and that is to beat Donald Trump. Congressman Himes is a guy we respect a lot, obviously a very smart guy, comes on our show all the time. He doesn't believe Donald Trump can be defeated by President Biden. Others say, well, Joe Biden is the guy who beat Donald Trump, and he can do it again despite all the shortcomings that we see out in the open. So is there some moment, and who is the person? Is it Hakeem Jeffries? Is it Nancy Pelosi? Is it former President Obama behind the scenes? Are there meetings? Are there conversations? Is there a moment where the party comes together and said, this is our decision, this is the plan? We're either standing with the president or the vast majority of us believe he should step aside. Does that moment ever come?
It really needs to, but I think the goalposts and the timeline keeps moving because first it was, all right, his first appearance after the debate. Let's see how that goes. Then it was the Stephanopoulos interview. Then it became, let's see how the press conference goes last night. Now it's become, all right, well, the RNC, the Republican convention is next week. Democrats come back to the Hill. Certainly by then, if Democrats haven't said all they need to say by then we'll have to see what happens. There is this moving goalpost and this moving metric. And I think the thing that's so hard is it's an unquantifiable thing. every lawmaker that I have talked to, I have asked the same question that you're asking me, which is, okay, when you say do more, what does that mean? When you need to see something, what does that look like? And there's no tangible answer to this, because really what you're solving for here is vibes, mood. People don't feel good. There is such a sense of despair that has been hanging over the Capitol as I've been working the halls the last few days. And that is not something that you can solve by data. It's not something that makes it, it's a feeling. It's not a fact, right? And so I think that's what people are looking for. And I have to say, I mean, you look at the fact that top Biden campaign officials went to Capitol Hill to meet with very nervous senators yesterday. And I know senators left that meeting saying, oh, well, they asked us not to leak. We're not going to give details. But the only thing that we did end up hearing about was the fact that it got heated when it came to pressing the Biden officials on what a path forward looks like. And I can tell you, I mean, we all know the way that lawmakers work. If that meeting had gone really well, they would have said that it went really well. And that's not what we heard in the halls. There were people who said, yes, I felt good going in, or I was a little nervous going in. I feel a little bit better now. The reality is this race was always going to be close. It sort of feels, honestly, like 2020, when all I heard from voters was, okay, I just want the best person to beat Trump, the best person to beat Trump. Biden got the benefit of the doubt on that, and it's open to see whether or not he gets it again here.
And the truth is, no one knows what happens.
And you can't know.
Both ways are a gamble. Staying with President Biden might be a gamble. The unknown, obviously, is a gamble. NBC's Ali Vitale and Carol Lee, outstanding reporting as usual from both of you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.